All right, everybody, welcome back to the Millennial Sales Podcast. Your host, Tommy Tahoe here. It's where young salespeople come to get the facts, the inspiration, the education they need to progress in their career. Pumped for today's episode. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see I am very clearly based on the beige behind me in a hotel room here in sunny Phoenix, Arizona, getting some shit done. So I'm on the road. Excited, really excited for this podcast today. I've got Ernest Owusu. Ernest is the Senior Director of Sales Development at 6sense. 6sense is one of the hottest SaaS companies in the world right now. They have funding out the wazoo. They're growing like crazy. Great tech. It's really impressive. And it's actually Bdr Appreciation Week coming next week, which they're one of the lead horses behind. And Ernest runs sales development there, and they're doing a lot of cool stuff for their sales dev team. So I wanted to have him on. Actually, this came from an episode I did with Pavilion. It was so good that I had to share it back with you all. I did have Ernest on about a year and a half ago. I think it's around episode 180. If you want to hear more about his background story, he played in the NFL for a few years as a defensive end. He was, at school at Cal Berkeley, playing football, got into sales, loved sales development, and then got into 6sense and has been growing and climbing up the ranks there for the last few years. Big on prospecting, big on fanatical prospecting by Jeb Blunt, huge on the culture creation. And he's got a few acronyms that we get into today about how he builds, trust with the team, how he builds this culture, how he builds a career development framework for SDRs and even SDR leaders. So if you're an SDR right now, if you are an SDR leader or an aspiring SDR leader, there's a lot of great info here. And so I did want to shout out anyone that's in the field making those cold calls this week and next week for Appreciation Week. That keep doing your thing. I hope this gives you some inspiration. I hope this gives you some wisdom that you can take with you. Real quick, before we get to the conversation, do me a solid. There's no ads on this podcast right now. So just show some love, subscribe wherever you're listening. If it's Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Leave a review, and then follow me on LinkedIn, Tom Alemo. I post every single day about sales and growth mindset, and I'd love to see you there and hear your feedback. So without further ado, let me get to my conversation with the bold and powerful Ernest Owusu. Let's go. All right, Ernest Owusu, good morning. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Pavilion Podcast. How are you, man?
I'm great. Happy hump day. Happy to be here. Can't complain.
I love it, man. Last time we talked, you were in the initial stages of raising triplets, and now we're at did they hit the 2-year birthday yet?
Yeah, it's funny. And they're not quite 2 yet. They'll be 2 in late March, but I will say things are definitely getting real, to say the least, over here. It's been pretty crazy to see what they've been doing. They're starting to talk a little bit and running around, and it's been a lot of fun, though.
That's awesome. I remember how, one thing that stood out to me last time we talked was you just talking about your routine, your schedule. I forget the exact specifics, but you were waking up super early every day, 4 or 5 in the morning, to work out, to get work in early, and just really try to set a lot of discipline around your life. I'm curious how the triplets have kind of thrown themselves upon you, and how you've made adjustments to balance being there for them, probably working from home still, and making sure you get the work done and everything like that.
Yeah, so that was definitely something I learned from my athletic career of just being the early worm, getting there, starting the day early, and making sure that I'm taking advantage of the day. That was a lifestyle. Now it's basically a mandate. I have no choice but to be up early because these kids are running around. But obviously, the good thing about it is, still even waking up before the crack of dawn around 4 or 5 every single day. Still allows me to get a lot of work done and be productive, even before sometimes they do wake up. But periodically, they will poke their heads out and start screaming and running around before the day starts. So I'm definitely well prepared, I will say the least, to handle that.
That's great. Well, the reason we're here today to talk is we got SDR Appreciation Week. when people are listening to this, it'll probably be the Monday of the actual week itself. We'll be in the midst of it. So we've got a lot to talk about. I mean, you're one of the I think most influential voices in the SDR world and in the SDR leadership world with just everything that you've built, within the last, 5-10 years of your career, post athletic and getting into the sales and leadership world. So maybe you could just educate me a little bit. I don't even know much about SDR Appreciation Week. So
Mhm.
is it something that you guys just came up with? Is it a real like industry wide thing? And like, what's kind of the purpose and background behind it?
Yeah, would love to explain that. So I guess this actually marks year 3 of doing BDR Appreciation Week. And, what it all stems from the fact is something that I think a lot of companies inherently know is that BDRs are at the tip of the spear. They are, one of the most important aspects of making an organization thrive. And at the end of the day, people just don't appreciate the work they do. And
Mm,
this isn't necessarily to say that, everyone deserves to be overpraised and we want to make sure that, all of us are feeling good. But the reality is there has been some kind of perception that the BDR job is really easy. It's something that, just an entry level role. We don't really care what they're doing. We just need them to basically do their job and basically, smile and down, right? And the reality is that is not what this role is about. And creating an environment where we can take 1 week per year to just sit down and acknowledge truly how hard of a job this is and how complicated it can be, as well as what the team goes through day in, day out, is honestly something that I would have really appreciated when I was personally a BDR. And I know that, as we enter our 3rd year of doing this, that, we saw, especially with last year, right? This whole BDR appreciation thing honestly went viral throughout LinkedIn, where SDR, BDR teams across the globe in the US and EMEA, APAC, all over the place were spending time to like really focus in on their team, making sure they're feeling appreciated. And it's honestly the status quo now. Like we need to have this as something that remains intact because it is a hard role, one of the most difficult roles within a revenue organization, and people need to realize that and recognize it because at the end of the day, a lot of people who have not done the role truly don't understand what it takes to be successful BDR.
mm. And so what it like during BDR Appreciation Week, like what's top of mind for you, like in terms of, trying to make them feel appreciated? Like how would you go about doing that? Is it a LinkedIn post? Is it a team meeting? Is it shouting people out internally? Like how do you handle it and how have you seen, I know when it went viral last year, like what were some of the ways that kind of like caught your attention of ways that leaders kind of showed respect and admiration to the team?
Yeah, definitely. And I think every team is unique. So I think all leaders out there can spend different ways to better appreciate their teams. Over here at 6sense, we have a couple things in store. And I will mind you, BDR Appreciation Week is the last week of February. I think the last week. It's the week of February 21st through 25th. So that's kind of when everyone should mark it on their calendars. And we're going to take some measures over here to help other organizations find ways to best celebrate their teams. But what I did see last year in the past couple years is a simple shout out on LinkedIn of your top performers, of people who are doing really well, has been helpful. One thing we've also seen is when people actually spend the time to have executives sit down and watch what BDRs are doing to learn about the role, that's also been great. But again, also giving BDRs the opportunity, maybe like on an all hands call or an opportunity where they can share more broadly with the organization of like what they're actually doing to try and generate meetings. That those are some things that we've done over here. We've seen other companies do really well. But again, it is important to know that every team is different. Know your team, know kind of how they'll feel appreciated, and use those measures to make sure they're getting the love they deserve.
I love the idea of having them run their own meeting or speak at a meeting. It probably kills two birds with one stone, right? Because you, as a leader, are always trying to think of content to provide the team, to run the team meeting. Here's how we do A, B, or C. And if you have someone that's killing it, one, it takes the workload off of you, and two, it helps them to kind of shine through, to build their chops a little bit, and to share what's worked with that BDR across the org. So I love the idea of doing that. One thought I just had is, I see people shout out their team members on LinkedIn. Sometimes I actually saw one this morning from a colleague at Gong. Is there ever in the back of your mind that thought though, if I put my best BDR and I shout them out on LinkedIn, that now all of a sudden all these recruiters are going to know that this BDR and she's killing it and she's leading the team and now she's going to get 30 in mails?
Yeah, I mean, I will say it definitely does come to mind. But what I try and do in that situation is, at the end of the day, this is about them. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, if I'm shouting out my top performers, other companies are going to realize that and probably start trying to reach out to them. But this is more of an opportunity for me to take care of them. And that is obviously something that I think leaders think about and are conscious of as they're given these recognitions. But at the end of the day, this time in particular is made to make sure that these BDRs that we have who are doing an awesome job are feeling appreciated. And if that's something that I have to risk for my top performers, then so be it. I feel confident in the program we're running over here and our retention rates with our BDR team. So it's not necessarily something that I'm too nervous about, but I will say I can understand if others are as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right way to think about it. But I'm sure if there's always that selfish part in the back of your head, like, man, I hope my top player doesn't leave me because I was appreciating them too publicly.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So we talked 18-ish months ago, and we were in the first probably 6 months of COVID. A lot was changing. We just kicked off the new year. What are some of the trends and ideas and changes that you're seeing across just the BDR world, whether it's for leaders or the BDRs themselves, that's standing out to you? And maybe it's a tactic, maybe it's there's so much new sales tech that's coming into the fold, new ideas, new trainings. Like, just curious if there's anything top of mind that has been really successful for you, or you're keeping your eye on for the rest of this year.
Yeah, I'd say, as we enter into what is this now going to 2 years post pandemic, the one thing that I saw across all revenue orgs, regardless of what industry you're in, is some of the reliance of your more traditional forms of generating meetings, of generating pipeline, having conversations were becoming a lot more difficult. In particular, some things with trade shows and things of that nature. So having a lot more reliance on data as the means to why and how you're making actions, as well as how you're trying to generate conversations, became even more prominent, and we're still seeing that to this day. So for our team, I think fortunately with what we do at 6sense, like, our product very much aligns to helping companies use data to make better decisions, to ultimately build pipeline and get to where they want to go from a revenue standpoint. But I have noticed that as people have realized that it can be a bit more challenging given the current environment, that's really important. I think secondly, one thing that people were really apprehensive about and nervous about is this concept of the BDR team has to always be in the office, and with your power hours you're doing, your call blitzes of rallying the troops around each other. If you don't have that environment, then you just cannot succeed. I think speaking from personal experience, from our team as well as from others, I think a lot of people have proven that yes, it is impactful and better for culture, for getting everyone together and driving results to have people in person. But there are teams that are finding ways to win, which is really promising to see. And on our team here at 6sense, we've found ways to make that work and to still get the job done, do it really well. At times when before Omicron came around, we were trying to find our way into the office when we could. But in general, we've been able to adapt, and have been able to see a lot of organizations adapt as well, which has been pretty cool.
What are some of the ways that you've adapted from the sales pit and all the different ways that you can more easily create camaraderie, motivation, accountability, all of that? Like, how have you brought that to the digital world the last 2 years?
Yeah, and I will say that is challenging, right? So there's nothing more motivating than having a power hour where you're sitting right next to the person making calls, hearing them win, and you getting competitive and wanting to do it together with them. So we've definitely adjusted. Like, on our side over here, we do our power hours through Zoom, so everyone can kind of be on the call together. And when someone does get a connect, then someone will pause and listen to their call and congratulate them when we win. We also do a lot of virtual events. Like, we try to have some kind of team event towards the tail end of the year. And this year, because of everything going on, we're going to do a virtual game night, which we've brought a company on. We're all really excited about that. Again, it's the in-person feeling is something that I really, really miss. I think our team definitely misses. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that everyone's getting an overall better experience the best that we can. And using these sessions like our power hours or our virtual game nights have been really effective and helpful for us to retain our culture. And we're going to continue to keep doing it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the Zoom Power Hour. You get all the BDRs, on a Zoom call. Is everyone making calls like on mute, and then you unmute if you get someone live, or are you going like one at a time call, and if it's voicemail, you leave the voicemail and it goes on to the next person?
Yeah, so we actually, because obviously if we're leaving voicemails, we don't want to just sit there on a Zoom and everyone's talking at the same time.
Yeah,
So we are primarily staying on mute, but once someone goes off mute, then that's kind of where we use as a mechanism to share how the call is going and gather feedback. We also use sales engagement tool, Sales Loft, which has been really effective for just our live call studio, so we can see how the calls are going, passing feedback to one another. But unmuting yourself during our power hours has been our best way to kind of share the experience and pass feedback to others in live real situations.
I love it. Do you ever get in, or do the leaders ever get in and like make a call or anything like
We,
that?
we definitely do. And I will say I would highly encourage every so often for leaders to do that. And the reason why I say that is because this kind of goes back to my sports background, but selling is 100% a skill. Calling, in my opinion, is 100% a skill. Very similar to, and I hate to use a sports analogy, but that's my background, so I'll use it. But it's very similar to like playing basketball, shooting free throws, right? You can be the best free throw shooter in the world, and if you take 6 months off, your game is going to be off, right? So
Hmm.
your ability to coach and help people shoot is obviously going to be off as well. So, it is a skill that has to be constantly refined, and there's nothing wrong with getting the pit and making some calls and failing with your team and doing all of that because it is fun and does help the team feel as if we're in it together to win as a team. So I definitely encourage that.
And that's the key too, is that just because you're the leader doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Doesn't mean that they're going to answer. And if they answer, doesn't mean that you're going to get a meeting every time. You know what I mean? You're just as likely to fail as, the SDR, BDR that just started a few months ago, because so much of it is out of your control, right? You can try to follow the right tactics, but at the end of the day, it's a numbers game, and it almost might make people feel better to see you fail, because then it normalizes that, hey, at least I'm not, it's not that I suck. It's just like, this is a tough job.
100%. And one thing we harp on here, which I'd highly encourage others if they're not thinking this way, is we try to focus more on the process of how we're getting a result as opposed to the actual result, right? So if I'm in a situation where I'm doing a call, like I care about like following through all the way from start to finish my calling funnel. And the reality is sometimes following that process won't net the results I'm looking for. But if I execute that task fully every time in the best efficient manner of my process, then that will net the results I'm looking for in the long run. So it's actually okay if I'm on a call and I get hung up on 3 times in a row or get yelled at from a prospect in front of my entire team. I actually don't care about that. The thing I care the most about is making sure that, and this extends to every kind of prospecting tactic too. It doesn't necessarily have to only be calls, but I care more about my team seeing that I'm following the process of how we want to call, how we want to execute my emails, how we want to do our social outreach to the T, because that consistency around doing that is what will net the results you're looking for.
Hmm. When I think about SDR, BDR Appreciation Week, or when any of these things come up, and it could be, whatever, Mother's Day or Father's Day or all these different holidays and weeks and months and everything that we've got, sometimes people say, well, every day should be Mother's Day, right? You should appreciate your
Mhm.
mother every day or whatever it might be. You should appreciate BDRs every week. And I know that based on our last conversation, that you have a very thoughtful framework around how you appreciate BDRs in terms of their career progression, their career growth, their skills development, things like that. So I'd love for you to just unpack that a little bit, because while it's important to highlight the week, I think it's also important to build out the framework at your company to make sure that the BDRs, have a fulfilling place to work the rest of the year as well. So I'd love for you to unpack that.
Yeah, for sure. So I would definitely say for any leader that is in some capacity working with BDRs, whether directly or indirectly, it is mission critical that you uphold the culture that a BDR team actually needs to thrive, as well as make sure that you're doing whatever you can to support them. And when I think about myself as a leader, or even other leaders that are tasked with leading BDR teams, the servant leadership mentality is something that is very much true and in my opinions, should be a cornerstone for how people are leading BDRs. And the reason for that is because when you bring on a BDR to your team, they're essentially getting a crash course in revenue generation. Whether that's the fact that they're a part-time marketer, a little bit of ops in there, as well as a salesperson. It is our job as BDR leaders to make sure that every single step they take is progressing them forward to learn how to be the best version of whatever they may become. Right. So, from a career development standpoint, just putting things in place for like giving them opportunities to learn about marketing, giving them the opportunity to learn about how to be a salesperson, giving them opportunities to gather feedback on how they're doing with those things. if you don't have those things in place, then in my opinion, you're kind of cutting your team short. But in terms of the culture, like one thing that we really harp on here at 6sense is we have this acronym that we tie to our values, which stands for family. Family is fun, accountability, mindfulness, integrity, love, and yes. And every single week, without fail, on our BDR all hands calls, our stand ups, we highlight one person on the team that best embodies that culture. Not
Mm.
because we want to constantly praise and overpraise the team, make everyone feel good, but for the fact of the matter is, this is a really hard job, and the team needs to know that the culture that we have is going to basically determine success and failure in their overall experience. And I have to have an environment where that's constantly reinforced to make sure the team is feeling appreciated and they are taken care of. And if it's something that you're not talking about on a regular basis, then it kind of falls to the wayside. And that's where you have environments where BDRs maybe don't feel as much appreciation or feel as much support.
Is that acronym for the BDR org, or is that company wide?
Company wide, we all stand up to it. But it's something that we've, for my past almost 3 years, I've been here at 6sense. Literally every single week we harp on it.
I love that. And the thing is that, some of those, some of the letters there, like accountability, integrity, whatever it might be, those don't necessarily mean that you had the best week of cold calling. That doesn't mean you booked the most meetings if you had integrity or often accountability comes when you fail at something, right? Or you
Mhm.
mess up and you're accountable to it. So I love the idea of praising not only the result, but kind of the characteristics that make up someone that's going to be successful. And it doesn't matter that you had a bad day or week, that you still did the right thing, and that's going to pay off in the long run.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the last thing I'll even touch on that too is like, again, being a BDR is a really hard job. A lot of people who have not done the role at times struggle understanding what it's like. When I look at BDR teams, we got to stay close together. We got to take care of each other and building a culture that is constantly refined and harped on, and people are looking out for opportunities to see when people are best embodying that is a really strong mechanism to do that because, again, it is a hard job and it's something that has to be top of mind for the team to feel motivated and to feel supported to the best of their ability.
I want to run an idea by you.
Mhm.
As we're both, to call us both former athletes is almost unfair to you because I was a D2 tennis player and you played in the NFL. But let's just say I admire your background in athletics, and I heard a story recently from Jordan Burroughs. He's a gold medalist, U.S. Olympic wrestler,
Mhm.
and it's on the topic of participation trophies. And the general thought is like millennials and Gen Z and everyone is getting all these participation trophies and it's making us soft. And he said, actually, I remember when I was first wrestling and I got my ass kicked and I got a participation trophy, and he was however old, 10 years old. And it was the thing that kept him going. He was like, oh, this is cool. Like, this trophy's cool. I want to go out and like go to the next meet and try to do a little bit better and do a little bit better. And I was thinking about that in the context of being a BDR, especially the first year of being a BDR, being in sales. It's just hard. It can just suck. Like getting told no, getting hung up on, trying to figure all this out. And I almost am comparing his story to, making those BDRs feel appreciated in that first year for doing the right things, not always just for the results, in that it might just help them get through that really tough time in the first 6-12 months so that they figure it out. And then all of a sudden their career takes off. Just, I'm curious. I haven't tested this theory. You're the first person I'm saying it to, but just curious, like what your take is on that.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting thing. When I think about BDR teams, you do need that thing to get you going because especially if you're in an organization where you're getting constant rejection on the phone, through email, through social, you have to have some kind of North Star that's guiding you. Otherwise, you're just not going to succeed. And whether that comes in the form of a weekly shout out from your manager or a participation trophy every single week or every single time you make a call that doesn't go well, there does have to be that one thing that you're looking towards. And what I'd highly encourage for anyone who does have a BDR team that maybe has a lot of high rejection, which a lot of the BDR teams definitely do have, is to really hunker down and help the team understand what their North Star is. And the thing that I've always noticed with BDR orgs is the three guiding principles that kind of keep people going and allow them to push through the hard times. Aside from like what we do on Bdr Appreciation Week, is a concept I call it the 3 C's. So it's a focus on career development, on your culture, as well as your compensation. With those three things in mind, you always have something that you can lean towards when things aren't going well or things are hard, as to like, this is where I want to go. This is how things are. This is how well I'm getting paid. And based upon those three mechanisms, they kind of help people. And everyone's different, right? Like, we see at times that in sales, some people will say, I'm not money motivated, right? Well, maybe you're career motivated, or maybe you're motivated by working in a company that treats its employees really well. But as long as you have a strong understanding of each person on your team and how he or she is best motivated, that will help them get through those times. I definitely have to say that I lean a bit more on the camp of not giving a trophy every single week. I think
Yeah.
Bdr Appreciation Week is an awesome opportunity to give the team some love and some praise. But if you don't want to basically do the participation trophies every single week, really knowing what your team cares about and what motivates them is probably the most important thing to give them the love and support they need.
I love it. I appreciate you dealing with me on that thesis. It's a work in progress for sure. Um, I want to pivot for a minute to, for some of the BDR leaders out there that are hiring. So I had an instance. I told you a little bit about this before, but I've got two people in my family that are seniors in college. They're interested in sales, want to break into tech, SDRs. And so I figured, hey, I'll throw out a post on LinkedIn and just see, like, maybe one or two SDR leaders I know will comment, and they get an interview, or at least look at their resume. And it was crazy. It was one of the most engaged posts I've ever had. I mean, I got dozens and I think I had like 100 something comments, and I had 2 dozen people just go straight to the DMs and say, give me their resume, or make the even just blind intro. I don't even need to look at the resume, just intro me to them. And I don't think that is because I'm special or because I'm cool. It seems like there's just a massive shift in terms of the power, and in terms of like the supply and demand of high quality BDRs and SDRs, to the way that tech companies are growing. I'd love to just hear like how you're handling that, and like, how are you going about searching out and keeping a healthy pipeline right now, where it just seems super competitive on your side to find the right people?
Yeah, I will say it is far more competitive than it's ever been. And, I definitely look at that as a testament to the fact that more and more organizations are truly seeing the value of having an SDR org, BDR org. Um, yeah, I think the only way I can put it is like, more organizations are seeing the value in it. I think the game is up leveling. It's not anymore a true smile and dial situation where you just pick up the phone, see a list, and just call down them. You have to be a little bit more strategic and thoughtful with how you're doing your outreach. So when I look at the fact that more organizations are seeing the value in it, I'm looking at the fact that it's actually a lot more difficult of a job and continues to be a more difficult job. It does create an environment where you got to really like expand across your network, talk to a lot of people, go to events, and just try and find opportunities to add to your team. And those aren't always easy to find, especially given the fact that there are more opportunities for other people to take SDR, BDR roles at other organizations.
What would be your number one tip to an SDR or aspiring SDR, BDR, that wants to get in the door with your org? What's like the number one thing that they can do to stand out in the interview process?
Yeah, sure. So we have our principles that we look for when it comes to hiring SDRs and BDRs, and a couple of them are. This actually comes from a book called Leading Sales Development, which pulled data from, I think, SalesLoft, AlphaSense, as well as Salesforce, around what are the main qualities and traits that we're looking for when it comes to hiring SDRs and BDRs. So some of them are a little bit more challenging for people to do initially. One of them is business acumen, having grit, having a sense of conscientiousness, which is essentially being very thoughtful with every single thing you're doing. A natural form of curiosity is important. So those are things that we look for. Now, in terms of preparing for an interview, which I would say, whether that's our company at 6sense or other organizations, being truly curious about the company and what they do will shed light to basically helping you do all of those aspects to make you stand out in your interview process. So if you really actually care about their product, where they're going, who they're selling to, why, things of that nature, it'll show in your interview process, which will also help you demonstrate your overall ability to be effective within the entire process. So, and there are also other aspects too. Like if you've never been in an SDR, BDR role, There are amazing organizations, like a FlockJ, SV Academy, Vendition, us in technology. There are a lot of organizations that help people learn how to become SDRs and BDRs. I think even Salesforce has a course on Coursera that helps you just learn how to do the role. There's no harm in doing that and talking to potential hiring managers around what that experience was like for you, but also to help you understand what the role is actually about. So I highly encourage people who would know nothing about the role, which I will say when I first started, I knew nothing about being an SDR, to at least explore some of those things and to be naturally curious about what the role entails, what the company's looking for, and that'll help you as you're preparing.
And most of those are free resources for the
Exactly.
SDR at least. And so you can take a course, you can learn how to use Salesforce and learn cold call and email best practices and all this. And I mean, you'll look like a stud in the interview process if you know that stuff versus someone that doesn't. And
Exactly.
it doesn't. It just costs you time and energy.
100%. Exactly.
All right, Ernest, I want to hit you with a couple rapid fires for the audience to get to know you a little bit better as we're in the back part of the interview process. So I remember last time we chatted, you mentioned Fanatical Prospecting, I believe, by Jeb Blunt as a book that was really helpful for you in your career. So one, can you confirm that? And two, any others that have stood out to you? They could be business or sales books. They could be a completely different genre, but anything as of late or anything else that's been really impactful for you to read?
Yeah, so I will definitely say Fanatical Prospecting is my Bible, if you want to call it, of
It's
sales
good,
development.
man.
It's a really strong book. If you are looking for anything tactically, mindset wise, whatever it may be, I highly encourage everyone to take a look at that. I also encourage people to take a look at just anything in general mindset focused around, up leveling your game and how you want to attack your sales career. And the reason why I say that is because, again, being in sales, being an SDR, being a BDR is very much of a skill. And like your mindset is essentially the foundation that allows you to build the skills to help you get the results you're looking for. And without a strong mindset, or at least the practice of making your mindset even stronger, then your ability to reach your potential is at times can be diminished. So I think tactically, and a bit, on the mindset side, fanatical prospecting is still my best. But I'd also encourage others to look at any kind of mindset books as well, because those are typically the foundation for what helps fuel how you're selling and how you're prospecting.
Any mindset books stand out to you?
There's a book called Mindset.
Yeah, I
Actually,
love that one.
I don't know who the author is, but that's the one
Carol
my wife.
Dweck.
Exactly, yeah. So my wife's a coach. We've actually both read it together. So I'd encourage
Nice.
everyone to read that one.
Okay. Yeah, that's a top five probably all time for me. It blew my mind.
I'd agree. I'd agree.
Okay, who else in the kind of like sales development world do you follow and take good advice from, whether it's on LinkedIn, podcast, YouTube, blogs, newsletters, however you like to learn? Who are some people that have stood out to you?
Yeah, so I'd say if there's one person I'd highly encourage SDRs to take a look at, is Kyle Coleman. I think Kyle
Mm,
Coleman's comment is really strong in terms of career development, in terms of how to craft an email, in terms of how to navigate the org as an SDR. He's consistently been a really strong voice out there to champion SDRs. I definitely focus in on him. I'd say if I had to name one other person, though he's not very active on LinkedIn, I think for SDR leaders, a really strong leader is Lars Nielsen.
hmm
He's been someone that, he's currently now at Snowflake. If you're ever looking at someone to model your career around, or someone who's kind of built an SDR org in an awesome way, he's definitely one of the people at the forefront of that. So I'd say Kyle Coleman from a pure content standpoint of what he puts out there to help SDRs. But I think for SDR and BDR leaders, Lars has always been one of the best out there. So finding a way to mirror to some degree what he's doing is definitely something I encourage people to do.
Yeah, a lot of respect for Lars and Kyle Coleman. He's top 1% in terms of tactical content on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn to follow, both for leaders and for SDRs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the frontline manager school at Pavilion, and he actually ran it. KD, Kevin Dorsey's running it, like the whole thing, but he stepped in. Kyle did yesterday to run a session, and the dude is just, I mean, he just nails everything. He's just super
Mm-hmm.
thoughtful, dialed in, has done it before at multiple companies. So I would second that vote for sure. He's great.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree.
All right, Ernest, what is bumping in the Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you're playing tunes at? What's going in the headphones nowadays?
That's a great question. I will say, I don't know when or how this happened, but I think maybe randomly I was on YouTube one day, but lo-fi music has been in heavy rotation for me. Like, I don't know, I don't know how it happened, but in particular, 80s and 90s hip hop with lo-fi, I've been all over that. So I can't say it's one artist or a particular playlist, but it's just the lo-fi music's been getting me going.
Man, it's crazy you say that because that's the same for me. I don't know, maybe the last like 3 to 6 months. I clicked it once because I didn't even know what that meant. And for people that aren't aware, it's kind of like a chiller version of like hip hop beats, and it's great to work to and great to kind of like focus in on. And now every time I go on YouTube, it's like, what if Wu-Tang Clan made lo-fi? What if Drake made lo-fi? What if Kanye West did? And so it's their music, but it's kind of like slowed down or changed the beat a little bit. And it's like it's addicting. I don't know what's going on with it, or if it's a brand new genre, but I'm all in on it too.
Yeah, it's the exact same. That's actually how I start most of my days, to be honest. So yeah, I'm into it.
I like it. I like it. Okay. What is your number one networking tip for people?
That's a great question. If I could give people one piece of advice on that, I'd say sometimes a lot of people isn't necessarily as good as the right people, right? So
Mm,
if you're networking, like have a reason as to why you're doing it. Like, are you trying to find a job? Are you trying to up level your game? Are you trying to like build opportunities? Just from a sales perspective, build opportunities within your business. Like, know what you're trying to do and target those people accordingly. It's not always about just like sending out blind connection requests to everyone because they're in your network and they could have a conversation with you. Like, be really intentional with why you're doing it and focus on the people you want to have a conversation with.
I love it. My last rapid fire for you is who would you like to see come on this podcast next?
That's a great question.
I had to hit you with the referral.
Yeah. Let's see if I could think of one person. It's a toughie. It's a toughie.
You could do
Um,
multiple if you want.
well, I mean, I think one thing that I would love to see is I'm part of this organization called Sales for the Culture, where
Yep.
we basically help people either coming into tech or currently in tech and sales roles, Black individuals coming to tech or already in sales, just have a voice or an opportunity to share perspectives and learn from each other. We've been in running for, I guess, 2 years now, maybe more than 2 years. So we have some awesome leaders over there like Jacob and Shelton and Marcus as well, who I think they might have been in some podcasts, maybe not through Pavilion, but I always appreciate their perspectives, and I think they'd be really strong people to have a conversation with.
I know who Marcus Knight is. What were the first two people's names?
Jacob and Shelton. I'll pass you their LinkedIn's afterwards, but they've
Okay.
been cornerstones in helping us build our program.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I had Nikki Ivy on my pod in December, and she introduced me to Marcus. So, but I don't think I know the other two, so I'd love the intro.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, before we head off, Ernest, I know like one obviously kind of like put a bow on this BDR Appreciation Week and what we've talked about. I know that the folks over at 6sense are doing a lot to help encourage that, to help kind of like blow this up a little bit more,
Mhm.
even more than the virality it had last year. So I'd love for you to just kind of like educate the audience a little bit on how they can get involved, what they should be looking out for, things like that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, BDR Appreciation Week is February 21st through the 25th. I think an easy way for companies to get involved is we're going to give people the opportunity to either have BDRs or SDRs nominate themselves, or leaders within the organization nominate some of their top BDRs. And we'll share some awards that they can basically place people in. And there will be an award ceremony on February 24th. And aside from that, feel free to follow me. Feel free to follow our CMO, Latney Conant, and I'll pass that over to you so you can pass it to everyone else. But both of us are basically championing this to the best of our ability because we obviously know what it's like. And Latney was actually, I will say, our CMO Latney was a BDR for a day a couple years ago. So she
Woo!
she got on the phones, was making some calls, doing some videos, so she knows what it's like.
I love that.
So we're championing this, and it's definitely an opportunity for organizations to step up and really just for 1 week in the year, show some love to their BDRs and look out for us as well as our organization sharing information to help people find ways to do that. But I think a really easy way is our awards ceremony we're having on the 24th, and the opportunity to nominate some individuals.
Awesome, man. So we will let everyone know about the links to that and help promote those as well. I assume in general you're going to be posting about some of this on LinkedIn, so it's probably good to either connect with you or follow you on there.
Yep, I agree with that. Yeah, so there'll be a couple of things we'll do weekly throughout February, but I think the culminating point will be our award ceremony. So look out for my content because I'll definitely be posting.
Awesome. Yeah, I highly encourage everyone to check Ernest out, both for Bdr Appreciation Week, but just in general when he's posting great and thoughtful advice. Hit him up on LinkedIn. My last question for you: I couldn't let you go without asking a football question. Who's got the Super Bowl this year? My Patriots got just embarrassed on Saturday, but I figure you've been in the NFL, you know what they would do. Who you got?
It's interesting. So I'm definitely biased, to say the least, towards the Bucks.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm
biased towards the Bucks too because I love Tom Brady.
Yeah, don't count out playoff Tom. So that's all I got to say with that. He's going to find a way to win, and though there was a wild card, I still feel like there's a pretty good shot that we'll make it to Super Bowl again.
Awesome. All right, Ernest, I appreciate you coming on. Everyone, again, go definitely follow him and get ready for Bdr Appreciation Week coming on February 21st.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
See ya. Thanks for checking out that episode. Start of the year. Let's kick some ass. Again, one of my goals for this show is to get as many subscribers wherever you're listening here on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Subscribe, leave a review, and then hit me up on LinkedIn, Tom Alemo, or any of my other socials at Tommy Tahoe. Look forward to connecting with you there. Peace.